Good morning and afternoon. It's Wednesday, 9 a.m. Pacific. Welcome all. I'm Kane and I'm joined with David, better known as the Workday Sharing Guy. Also joining us is Denise, Logan, and special guests. Welcome to the Sharing Show.
Thank you, Kane. Can you please tell us a little bit more about Zoom?
Certainly. So we're using Zoom and we have the ability for you all to chat with us here on the show. So if you'd like to take part, if you have a question or an ask or a share, please use the chat feature down below. Really want to hear feedback, really want to get interactive with everyone on the show today. And so without further ado, I shall hand this over to you, David.
Thanks, Kane. I'm going to go ahead and start with the Kahoot this morning. If you will please use your device to go to your browser, open your browser and go to kahoot.it, and we will get started this morning. We're going to do our survey. There's no right or wrong answers, so just whatever best fits your situation.
Denise, it's asking me for a pin.
Okay, we'll get your pin in just a moment here. So the pin for this morning is 992653. You put that in and then put in your nickname. We'll wait a minute for people to get in and we'll get started.
I'm happy to see we're back to 6 digits there, 992653.
All right, here we go. There's 3 questions.
If I don't find what I'm looking for on community, I ask coworkers, I ask friends and or David, I try a Google search, or I drop it and come back later, or never. Denise, I figure if you're David, I'll be Denise. Okay, so a fair number will ask coworkers and then drop it and never come back. Some will ask friends or me, or a few will try a Google search, which we did have Google search of the week last week. So I'm always interested. If you do find an answer on Google, let me know. That would be great. All right, the sharing show makes me think, laugh, cry, or other. Okay, I was really wondering. Okay, I'm laughing as I'm saying this, but almost everyone said think. I wonder what the other 3. We were going to say smile or laugh. But okay, this is very clear. If there is a share-a-thon in Prague in June, I will book a flight immediately, request approval and register. Miss it, but offer to host your own share-a-thon in your city, depending on the topics you might attend. Okay, you did not have much time to answer that, but you might contact me and let me know that you want to host a share-a-thon, and depending on the topics you might attend. Okay, sorry, we didn't give you much time for that question.
And what do we have next on the agenda?
Next up, we have David, the Workday Sharing Guy.
Thank you, Denise. All right, hi everybody. This is David, the Workday Sharing Guy. I always do this disclaimer because I have a handshake agreement with my former manager at Workday that I'll be very clear to people that I do not represent Workday. I am holding the Workday Way sign. It's a street sign. There's no TM there on that street sign. So I do not any longer work for Workday. I am employee number 149. My hire date is 2007, but I left Workday several years ago. Everybody here, everyone's sharing in the sharing show. Share-a-thons and the sharing show, it's all about sharing. It's not training. I do highly recommend the Workday training. I'm going to start off right away with an announcement. So this just came in after we had written up the Kahoot. There is going to be the first ever European Share-a-thon. It's going to be in Prague on a Tuesday and Wednesday, the 18th and 19th of June. You will find that posted on community. As of last night, it became official. We have a new feature now on the sharing show called Charity of the Week. And Charity of the Week this week is Movember. Some of you might remember on an earlier episode of the sharing show, I let people know that I'm captain of a team that used to be called the Workday Alumni Team, but now we're Workday Alumni Customers and Friends, and I'm not shy to recruit to the team. Why today? Well, today is exactly half a year before Movember. Movember is every year in November. It's for men's health, but it's a co-ed sport. Men grow mustaches. Women do what they want to help bring awareness of men's health issues, but it's actually turned into mental health, which you've seen on previous airings of the sharing show, as well as movement. So Movember is not just Movember for mustache, it's Movember as well. And they've added mental health recently as a focus. And that's something for all genders. Now, what I do on the final day of every month is I walk a mo. That's a picture of a Strava drawing of my lunchtime walk yesterday, the last day of the month. And it's kind of fun to take your walk of a mustache and turn it into a picture, a face of some sort. There's a famous guy in the Movember world who raises more money than anyone else year after year. He's doing this in Australia as well. So we're collecting drawings of mustaches in cities all around the world. So feel free to contact me about that. You can join this team. You have half a year. You won't hear about this every episode, but as November comes up, I will be talking more about Movember. And for those of you who have a favorite charity, know that we are seeking for every week to have a sponsor of a nonprofit. Ideally, it's a nonprofit who's a Workday customer. So if you do want to join the team, you could contact me, use the chat to make a comment if you'd like. Okay, or if you work at a company that you think that you would actually form a team, Workday has several teams and they all compete. So feel free to form your own team. Feature of the week. So this feature of the week, I'm interested in hearing in the chat, how many people were surprised by this? So feature of the week, for most of us, even though it went in late on Friday, Monday morning saw this and maybe didn't realize that everybody who uses Workday is going to see this question. Do you want to remember the device? Raise your hand if you were prepared for this. And I was just making a joke about raising your hand, but I could see there is a feature actually to raise your hand. So many people were prepared. If you were unprepared, maybe you don't know too much about it. So very quickly, a device is not what I think of a device as a laptop, but very clearly in the FAQ, it points out that the device means a browser. So if you're using Chrome and then you're also using Safari on a phone or on a computer, it doesn't matter. That's going to be its own unique device. So just a few things for those who were not aware of this, and feel free to put your comments in the chat. There's a trusted devices FAQ out there, and it does point out in there in the FAQ that this thing was going to be coming between March and April 26th, and that was Friday late. So for a lot of us, we found out about this on Monday. The other thing is if you have anybody within your company saying, okay, wait, this is really causing a problem for me and several others, can you disable it? If you didn't know, the FAQ does point this out. There's a way to disable it, and there's a trusted device checkbox. You'll see it right there. If you want to keep it on, I saw several messages, by the way, from people who thought it meant that you wouldn't have to re-enter your password. So for those who are not using single sign-on, or you're using a small team in an info tenant or sandbox, what will happen is you'll get an email that says, hey, you never logged in from Chrome before. I'm now going to remember this device. I didn't know about it. This had better be you. And then you could test it by logging into Workday using Firefox. And then you'll get yet another email saying, oh, this is a new device.
Now let's see last week's ask.
We're not going to go through the same thing we went through last week, other than to point out that we discussed position management. And this was an ask that we had. The person will be here scheduled for next week's airing of the sharing show to discuss more on position management. Although we did quite a lot of discussing of position management last week, how do you use position management? We did a Kahoot, and this was the results. And then in the chat, we had several comments. So I'm going to hold this here for a bit, but everyone knows that these are recorded. You could go to YouTube, watch this, and pause, and then read through the chat messages. So these are last week's chat messages.
Okay, so up next we have a position management share with Bryn, who unfortunately got called away to emergency meeting. So we're going to go through her slides quickly.
Okay, so next week then Bren, so we have both the person who asked the question initially and Bren as well. We'll go through her slides. There is one thing I was going to point out here though, Denise, is in one of her slides, you'll see in the middle here, somebody's name, Ellen or Christina, and you see Christina is all capital letters. So we're cruising through Bren's slides, and we'll go through these again with Bren live next week. But I did want to point out that one.
Yeah, I remember when looking at those, and I know how to fix the Christina name for those of you who remember Mike's Boomerang.
So Logan, that's a good catch. So the very first airing of the sharing show, exactly 10 weeks ago, because it's the 10th airing. Is that right? 9 weeks ago, exactly 9 weeks ago. This boomerang by Mike shows this example input of all uppercase. And he gave the background is often it comes in there because it was a scan of a resume. And when you scan the resume, it's sometimes all capital letters. So he wrote a boomerang to read in those names and then turn them into the proper mixed case, what some people call camel case.
And what do we have up next on the agenda?
Up next, we have our special guest, Nate from Utah with Recruiting Dashboards.
Welcome, Nate.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for joining us, Nate.
So we have a lot of need to kind of dig deep into some of our recruiting data. And I've seen a lot of posts out there where the question that get asked is, how do we get to the sub steps? It's really good about letting us know if we're in screen or review or interview, but how do we get to a face-to-face interview, and how long did it take to get through that? And how long did it take to get through a phone interview? Getting down into those sub steps, there's really no reporting structure available. And so I took a matrix report, and I think when I posted this originally, we were at 73. I think we're almost over 100 now of calculated fields to go from the business steps process. And it's a lot of taking the text and converting things to text so that we can manipulate them and use them. And what you're seeing now is a time to fill by step. How long did it take us to get through our offer stage? How long did it take us to get through our review and our screen? And so we can now kind of get an idea of where we need to focus more attention on cleaning up how we get through our review. Maybe work with our managers more tightly to help them get through the resume reading process a little more quickly. And so this report, it's a beast. And the more that we poke at it, the more we learn about it. And it's really good at delivering all the data that we need, including, if an offer went through the cycle of being renegotiated 3 or 4 times. And then we can ask ourselves, well, why did we need to do that? Is it because they requested a negotiation, or is it because we put the information wrong? So now we can start asking the right questions about how we can shore up our processes for a more efficient recruiting experience.
So Nate, you're getting a lot of positive comments in the chat about how great this is. When you say it's a beast, there was also a comment about how nice it is of you to share it on community. Those are my words. Are you going to put this on as a solution, or some place where people can grab? 100 calc fields sounds like a lot, but as long as they all start with the word Nate, people will know it came from you.
Yeah, so as soon as we get the kinks worked out and we understand the data that we're pulling, like I said, the deeper and deeper we get in here, the more and more we realize, oh, this is actually serving up this kind of data, and we're looking at it with fresh eyes. So once I begin to understand the totality of the package, I don't think putting it on solutions off the table.
Okay, so that's your way of saying, for now, it's a kinky report, and you're going to, once you've ironed that out, maybe you will put it up on community.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a good share and could really benefit companies using the Workday ecosystem. So definitely would look forward to putting it into the solution main framework.
Yeah. Well, maybe what you could do also is if you don't get the approval to put it on community as is, you could explain to us in a future airing of the sharing show how converting to text helped you then do these calculations. I'm interested in actually seeing some calc fields, so maybe you'll come back and do that on a future show.
Sure, that would be great.
Yeah. Okay. So after we end the sharing show on time at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, this is the first time we're doing a post-show open mic. Unfortunately, Nate is not able to stay on past the half hour. So for those who have questions for Nate, feel free to ask. Nate, we keep track of the chat. As you see, it came up earlier in the presentation today. So we will keep track also of notes for you, but feel free to be active on the chat. Any other final comments about it, Nate? Or are you watching the chat, and are there any questions that you or you're answering already in the chat? Anything you want to answer verbally?
No, I mean, I really appreciate the feedback, guys. I mean, it's good to be here, and thanks for the opportunity. I'll be answering some of these questions that come across on the chat with the chat. So thanks, guys.
Okay. Thank you, Nate.
Thank you, Nate. Up next, we're going to have an LRV ask and answer.
I don't know if Michael joined today yet, but he did ask in the chat last week if we could show how to use an LRV to make a field available on a business object. And I've been going through an example. I'm just going to bring it up, and I'll go quickly again because I know people could go back and rewatch and pause if it goes too fast. But there is a function to calculate the difference between two dates. And the challenge I had asked last week, I didn't answer live last week because to me, the challenge was on the slide that looks just like this. The difference between someone's hire date and their date of birth is their age at hire. You'll notice that both of those date fields are on the worker object. So the function called date difference, in a calculated field function, date difference requires that the two dates be on the object in which you're putting the calculated field. In this case, there's a calculated field put on the worker called age at hire. This brings up, it's a setup now to explain why LRV exists. So say you wanted to know the month difference between all workers and their manager. How many months before or after were they hired compared to their manager? So you're looking here at a worker, hire date on a worker, and then the hire date on a manager. You'll see that that manager level 1 is a 1-to-1, and that's a requirement on LRV that you are going to copy a value. Even though it's called lookup related value, it could have been called copy value because it actually copies the value from a 1-to-1 RBO onto the object itself. And then that would allow you to do your date difference. So first off, to answer the question, how do you do lookup related value? The wording is a little bit tricky here. It's called the lookup field, but it's not the actual field that's getting copied. The lookup field is the RBO itself. So from the worker, you want to go to the manager level 1, then you pick out the hire date, and that will get copied onto the worker object. Again, you could go back through this if it's going too fast, but once you have the manager's hire date on the worker, you would then be able to do the date difference. So Michael, I hope that answered your question.
Thanks, David. The next topic is report performance and indexed reports.
All right, well, this is David. Once again, we had a few guests lined up today that had something else come up. So I'm glad that I had some slides here to make sure everyone understands how indexing works. I've heard many different examples of what indexing really means. What I like the most is this picture. Maybe for some of you or your children, you'd have to explain that's back in the day, there used to be these things called phone books where they actually listed alphabetically all people and their phone number in it. So these things are still being published. I don't know why, but the phone book itself is a good example of indexing. Everybody's listed alphabetically by last name, and you could jump right to the L's or the M's because on the side you see a little dark spot of where you would get to that particular letter. When you run a report, if something's indexed, it means you could go directly to it. If it's not indexed, like you can't go directly to the M's, an example would be, let's say you wanted to list not only all the McNeils in Victoria, but you wanted to list all the Logans. You didn't know someone's last name. You needed to look up Logan. You would have no choice other than to turn page after page after page looking for the first name Logan. Believe it or not, a computer can go page after page after page through the Victoria phone book pretty quickly. Means not a few seconds, maybe a minute or two, but it's pretty darn quick. But if it's indexed, it happens in nanoseconds. Essentially, right away it would happen. So that's the difference. I like to use that example. Phone books are indexed by last name. They're not indexed by first name. It could actually be both. They could publish an even thicker book. And the first half would be indexed by last name, and the second half indexed by first name. That would be additional indexing. And that's what Workday has added for customers somewhat recently, the ability for us to say, hey, we want you to index by first name also. Here's the part that came up in last week's airing of the sharing show. Somebody said that they had a problem. A guest had a problem with a filter. And afterwards, I thought maybe this was the problem. When you choose a report data source, which is indexed, for those of you using Workday Recruiting, for example, something called Find Candidates, there's this field that says fully indexed report. It's automatically checked. You could uncheck it, but by default, it's checked. And what that means is the data source is tied to yes or no by default. It could be fully indexed if you want it to be. Here's what maybe some people don't realize. If you want it to be, it might limit your filtering. So I'm going to get to that by showing you what this report looked like when I created it. Lets you know that the data source is of type indexed as compared to standard is what you would see if it's not indexed. In the filter, you see a field here and it's yellow. We can only filter on indexed calc fields if it's fully indexed. This is the data source itself. I blacked out some of this picture, but you'll see here that it tells you very clearly this is an indexed data source. It does not mean the report has to be fully indexed. If the report's fully indexed, when you filter, you're only going to get yellow CRFs. So I searched for name and only 3 results came up: first name, full name, and last name. So those are indexed. What if I wanted to filter by middle name? Well, that thing is an index. It didn't show up here. Okay, so you see 3 results. Now you could go to the advanced tab on the report, and I blew up the bottom of it so it's easier to see. It tells you that it's fully indexed, but you can edit this report and take that off. It's still going to run quickly, but you could say, but I don't want it to be fully indexed because I need to actually filter by something else. So some other name, for example, legal first name, that was not indexed by Workday. So you see it's not yellow. Now, again, you could tell Workday, you need this report to run fast. It needs to be fully indexed. Please index for me legal first name. Workday will do that. It takes them a little bit of time to get it done. And you're also limited as to how many per business object you're allowed. And only certain business objects are you allowed to do that. Workday keeps updating it, so they allow you more and more, and they're allowing more and more fields. So again, if you take off fully indexed, then you can see that. Okay, this is showing that in the filter tab, it's yellow, but that field, for example, application date is not yellow when you see it in the report. That's essentially like saying when you do find Logan McNeil in the phone book, it doesn't, her address doesn't have to be, or her phone number doesn't have to be indexed. It's on the same line. So everything on the left doesn't need to be indexed. It's the filter where it matters if it's indexed or not, right? That's the answer to this question. Why is it not yellow on the left? Now, again, we're going to have a post-show open mic. So those who have questions about indexing or anything else that came up, we could talk about that in the post-show.
And what is our challenge of the week?
Okay, the challenge of the week, I don't know how many people will get this. It's not in the Kahoot, it's only in chat. How many people know why a particular brainstorm could actually have more votes than reads? When I saw this, I thought, wait a minute, does that mean when I read one of Floyd's brainstorms or one that I want to vote for many times, I can vote more than once? That's actually a trick answer. That's not really the answer. Go ahead in the chat. Do you know how this is possible? How is it possible for a brainstorm to have more votes than reads? Answer in the chat and we'll come back to it before the very end of the show. One hint, as you could see there, the date goes back to 2012 on this particular brainstorm.
Now let's take a quick look at the Workday stock price.
So a quick look at the Workday stock price. It did break through 200. So the pool was won by somebody who I know is on. I do not know if you're shy and you don't want to be highlighted, but you did win. So you could see here on the right, sorted by date, only one person picked last Friday. And you could see right here very clearly at 10:30 in the morning, it had already broken through 200. That specific time, it's already at 201.51. So congratulations to you, C. I'm not going to say more than that because I didn't know if you wanted to. If you want to, just go ahead and let people know in the chat that you're the winner. But congratulations, and we could unmute you if you would like to accept your congratulations verbally. This is a fun photo, fortune of the week, from Lucy. So most people said that the sharing show makes you think instead of laugh. So I'm going to go straight through this. But I do know that it's been fun for me working with everybody here on the sharing show. So I hope everyone does get a laugh every now and then.
All right, it's time to see who will make the podium this week with our Kahoot quiz. So this is our quiz. So there is a right and wrong answer here. So the pin for the quiz, you'll have to refresh if you haven't already. The pin is 760439.
And thank you everyone for staying an extra minute or two over. Today I was long-winded.
Okay, here we go.
November is yearly in November, twice a year, only for men to participate, or they are the largest Workday nonprofit customer. A lot of people knew this. It's every year in November is Movember. Gretch is in the lead, Quincy, Anthony, Jen, and Charlie close behind. The new trusted devices feature was turned on for all customers with Workday 32 back in March, is now required for all customers, is the most secure way to handle passwords. It could be turned off in tenant setup. Yeah, that's the answer. It could be turned off in tenant setup. So it's not required. It's been turned on for all customers, but it's not required. Brett's still in the lead a little bit in front of Leah, Sam, Chris M is back, and Charlie, you're holding there in 5th place. An LRV calc field is a performance issue and should be avoided. An alternative to extract single instance. Only available for one-to-one RBO, single instance. A way to compare date fields. What's an LRV? Lookup related value. It is only available on one-to-one, so most people have that as well. Gretch, still in the lead, holding in front of Anthony, Chris M. Satya and Charlie, you're sticking in 5th place somehow. All right, here we go. A report field with the yellow icon cannot be used in a filter, can only be used in a filter, requires a fully indexed report, is indexed for better report performance. That's true, it's indexed. If it's yellow, it means it's indexed. Charlie, you've jumped up to number 1. Then Gretch, Chris M, Shane, and Chitra. Workday stock crossed over 200 approximately what time last Friday? 10:05 a.m. Pacific, 10:35 a.m., noon, or 2 p.m. Pacific time. These are all Pacific time. Will Charlie be our first ever to lead the podium 2 weeks in a row? It was 10:05. At 10:35, it had already cracked through. It couldn't be at 2:01 at 10:35 as the picture had showed. Let's see, I think that was our final question. Chitra got it right. 5,000 points, about 300, 250 in front of Luke, and LPB in 3rd place. Congratulations, everybody. Thank you for staying over. The final part here before we wrap up and go into the open mic is to answer this question. At one point between 2012 and now, Workday had fine-tuned community and either accidentally or for some reason removed this feature of reads. So everything went back to 0. That's how it's possible. There is no hacking brainstorms. There's no way to get in and vote extra times. So that's why this one had lots of votes back then and only 22 reads since the read count started back up maybe 2 years ago. All right, Kane, we're ready to wrap up and then get into the post show.
Thank you, David, Denise, Logan, and thank you for our special guests joining us today. As always, we'll publish this we'll publish the recording of this to YouTube, and you'll find all the other episodes are there as well. And please stick around. Those that want to continue on to the open mic, we're going to close the show out, but then open up the mic. So please stay around. For everybody, just have a great work day. We're looking forward to the open mic. Take care.